Good evening. How are all of you tonight? Doing well? You braved the wind to come out here? It's good to see you. Welcome to our Living Writers series. Tonight we have with us Cortney Lamar Charleston. Cortney Lamar Charleston's work has been showcased in a number of journals, the Iowa Review, the New England Review, and TriQuarterly, to name a few. His collection, Telepathologies, was selected by D.A. Powell for the 2016 Saturnalia Books Poetry Prize, and he is a recipient of fellowships from Canem and the Conversation Literary Festival. Charleston's work speaks to the state of race in 21st century America without pulling any punches. His style is sometimes that of outrage held at bay by poetic form. Other times, the tone of his work is biting and satiric, like in his poem, I'm Not a Racist, which explores the irrational rationalization process of an individual who has been enculturated into a hegemonic system of whiteness that normalizes racial micro and macroaggressions. Charleston's skill with language allows him to sculpt works clearly tied to a poetic tradition that simultaneously challenge and complicate conventional boundaries along with readers' expectations. His is a new voice with a familiar sound. Or maybe it's that his work forces readers to look at a here and now in America that should be anachronistic, but it's not. A racialized system that has existed since the founding of this country, changing its appearance or form, but not its content or character. Lamar's work reminds readers that believing that America is post-racial is like admiring the emperor's new clothes. I am very happy that he's here to share his voice with us today, as it is one that most certainly needs to be heard. And with that, I give you Cortney Lamar.
All right, first things first, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? How are y'all doing? Good? All right, just checking. I apologize for the delay. I got caught up in some trademark northern New Jersey traffic, but I am happy to be here, happy to be sharing some time and space with all of you. And, you know, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming out. And so I guess the way I like to do things, the order of proceedings will go, I'll talk a little bit first, just about me, about what I do with writing, with poetry, and then I'll go through some of the collection here for you, Telepathologies. I'll read some of the poems, kind of at leisure, try to string together some that I think are speaking to each other especially, and then I'll put the book down, and I'd love to hear from you all, talk to you, answer questions, anything like that, because that's really what I look forward to and what I was most looking forward to in visiting today. So to start off, as the introduction said, thank you, Jason, so my name is Cortney Lamar Charleston. I'm originally from the Chicago area, so I'm not from the East Coast. I'm not from Jersey, although I've been living in New Jersey for a little bit over 3 years in JC, Jersey City. And growing up, I was always acutely fascinated by, I guess you could say, the construction of race. You know, as a black person living in the United States, it's something you're cognizant of even before you have words to speak to it, right? You know coming into this world that you are somehow othered, right? And that experience, I don't believe, is unique to black folks. I think other folks go through it too, because the construction of normalcy, right, orbits around whiteness. That's just the way America is. It's the way America's been since the beginning. And coming into that, you really, you know, as a person of color, as a black person and a black male, my growing up was trying to figure out where is my place in a system that essentially tries, you know, in so many ways to kind of wash me out, right? It tries to wash out my voice, my opportunities, my ability to make decisions on my own and live solely by the impact of those decisions, right? But that's something I began piecing together from a very early age, and it carried through all my schooling, which I guess also exacerbated it somewhat because after, I want to say, in my late elementary school years, I transitioned from a predominantly black environment to a predominantly white environment. And, that came with a little bit of tension and trying to figure out kind of things and where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do. That carried through all the way through high school and then up through college, right? So I've always been navigating these different transition zones, these different aspects of identity, not just racial, but also, gender, sexual orientation, all of those things, right? To understand a little bit more about my own place in the world and what the world really says about that place to begin with. After college, which I went to in Philadelphia, I graduated, moved down to Atlanta for a little bit before coming up here. So I've also had a little bit of a regional variance as well to draw from. But I'll tell you, despite what differences I've seen in places I've traveled and people I've talked to, America is America everywhere. So I'll kind of leave that as a starting off point. And then as far as I see it, let's get into some of the verse, into some of the poems. And I think that'll kind of flesh out a little bit of what this intro statement has been. And once again, before I start, thank you all for coming and also for, most importantly, for listening. I guess I'll stay at the table and read from here since it's a pretty central position in the room. But I'll start with the first poem in the book. How do you raise a black child? From the dead, with pallbearers who are half as young as their faces suggest and twice the oxen they should be, without a daddy at all, or with a daddy in prison, or at home, or in a different home, with a mama, with a grandmama if mama ain't around, maybe even if she is, in a house or not, in the hood, in the suburbs, if you're smart or not afraid of white fear, or even if you are, taking risks, scratching lottery tickets, making big bets on a basketball court, inside a courtroom, poorly in the ever pathological court of opinion, on faith, like a prayer from the belly of a whale, in church on Sunday morning, on Monday, Tuesday, and every other, before school and after, in a school you hope doesn't fail, in a school of thought named for Frederick Douglass, old school or not at all, with hip-hop or without, at least with a little Curtis Mayfield, some Motown, sounds by Sam Cooke, eating that good down-home cooking, putting some wood to their behind, with a switch, with a belt to keep their pants high, not high all the time, on all-time highs at all times until they learn not to feel and think so lowly of their aims, to be 6 feet tall and not under, with a little elbow grease and some duct tape, sweating bullets, on a short leash, away from the big boys on the block, away from the boys in blue, without the frill of innocence, from the dead, again, like a flag. So I started there, and I think I actually might have missed a line, I can't remember, but I started there because I think what this poem really speaks to is some of the organizing questions that informed the writing of the book and the writing of this larger collection of poems, and really go back to everything I was talking about in the intro, right? Trying to figure out my place, but also thinking about, the fragility of life and seeing black men, black women, black children on the news being victimized in so many different ways, and wondering, is there any way to stop that? Is there any way that that's possible? And in a racist society, that really is kind of par for the course, right? That's the system as designed. There's really no way around it. And your class, right, or your civility or your respectability are not really things that protect you more than maybe creating the illusion of protection in your own mind. And that's something that I've learned by living it, but learned by watching as well, and seeing clearly cases of those types of scenarios playing themselves out. So I felt it important to start there. Flip ahead a little bit. Melanophobia, fear of black. How the moon sometimes is a scythe of hard enamel, sign that somebody may be left better headless in the dark. How the threat's description is always bigger than the actuality, panic, a hallucinogen ringing its own alarm. How a teenage boy becomes a bull, a tough cut of muscle to cut down, too much to handle, a man thinks, tickling a trigger, pathogens atmospheric among the airwaves. The deepest violet has bloomed. The police are on high alert. Home security systems have loudened with consumer demand. Parents in suburbia are turning down the music, locking up their liquor cabinets and wine cellars, placing tracking devices inside their daughters' cars. The city wheezes a swaying of water-stained glass against the sky, always on verge of shatter. Telecommuting is the only way of traveling to good work. Somewhere, in a factory near the graveyard of locomotives, gears continue turning undeterred by the friction of bodies, sacrifices ground to dust while trying to stop them from telling lies of time and progress. Everything came back around to where it was before. There's a hunt going on, not for witches, but female kinds of canine. Corrections has an abundance of cells available, and all those state-of-the-art circuit boards still don't put themselves together. It's said there hasn't been an operating system developed that performs as well as they do under intense heat. Flesh be damned. And it is, looks hell-fired. DWB. Don't panic. When it happens, turn the stereo all the way down. If it's dark, nighttime, turn on the overhead light. Don't panic. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Never make any sudden movements. Hold your breath. Don't panic. If he asks to see your license, give it to him. Your wallet should be in sight, not in your pocket. Don't panic. Calmly ask to reach into your glove compartment for your registration, insurance card if requested. Don't panic. For any other type of question, keep a tight lip, nod only, then inquire if you may leave politely. Don't panic. Speak slowly, speak softly. Use your best English at all times. Suggest a hint of cursive in your tone. Don't panic. He needs to think you know somebody significant, the Lord or a good lawyer, Cochrane's ghost or holy. Don't panic. Make him think he'll have to answer if you don't drive away as dark as you came into his steel blue eyes, if he panics in cold blood. Meditation on the Casual Use of Hands, for Eric Garner. 7:39 a.m. I wake in a mood, my bedroom suffused by a soft blue hue, the song of distant sunlight and low-hanging clouds. I leave my girlfriend to rest a few minutes more, her mind filling in the space between prayer and flesh. I throw on my bathrobe and walk downstairs. I look at myself in the mirror through lenses of dust, discard my robe, my sweatpants, my yellowed t-shirt with a hole to the right of my left nipple 8 or 9 millimeters across. I gently twist the faucet handle on its neck. The water is faintly warm, like spit, and takes the smell of my beast body down the drain with it. My hair gets washed, adored with shea, massaged with my palms and a passing thought or two. I dry off, brush my teeth, head upstairs and throw earth tones over earth tone like a funeral. I depart for work after kissing my girlfriend, still filling my outline in the mattress with more valuable light. I catch the PATH train into Manhattan. It's that rare day I have a seat, which is good because I forgot my orthotics and my feet are tired from weeks of trying to take stands. I sit next to a swollen brother, but we don't talk, choosing to listen to our headphones until we exit the train. I walk the usual 7 blocks, stopping on my way to grab a low-fat cream cheese bagel, tiptoeing around suits on the sidewalk, smoking cigarettes, a single at a time. After arriving at the office, I boot my laptop and grind through a long day of meetings held over thin wires. I run into college friends when I pick up a burrito for lunch. I smile at them without concern for what showing my teeth can do. After eating, it's back to hustling. During a bathroom break, a white friend living in Atlanta, who was usually just a friend, texts me, "No indictment." I text back something approximating anger, but my actual demeanor is more like, "Word." I chat with a certain few coworkers later in the day. We're all upset and say so in low voices so our colorful language won't be overheard. Word. When the work is no longer urgent, I go home. I get a seat on the train again, sitting next to a slender brother playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I don't say anything, just watch his polygonal avatar tote machine guns, think to myself, word. When I get off the train in Jersey, I can hear my girlfriend's sister's white boyfriend playing violin on the train platform. Usually I think of him as my girlfriend's sister's boyfriend, or as himself, but there's a thin wire in me that's been tripped, and not in the name of classical music. When I get above ground again, my phone buzzes to life, a text telling me to make dinner tonight since she's coming home late. I reply with something equating loosely to word, and with that same ease, my praying mind fills my gut with chicken. My hands follow its lead, casually, flowering the cold and the raw. This is how I've been taught to stomach death. Popo Postlude, remixing Tupac Shakur and Kendrick Lamar. And it starts with an epigraph from the United States Department of Justice, which came from a report that they did on Ferguson after after Mike Brown was killed there and all the protests started to happen. And the epigraph reads, Ferguson's police and municipal court practices both reflect and exacerbate existing racial bias, including racial stereotypes. Ferguson's own data establish clear racial disparities that adversely impact African Americans. U.S. Department of Justice. Some say the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I say the wider the jury, the tighter the noose. She say the darker the flesh, then the deeper the roots. He say the bigger they come, then the bigger he shoot. He say the bigger they come, then the deeper he roots. She say the darker the flesh, then the tighter the noose. I say the wider the jury, the bigger their juice. Some say the blacker the berry, the sweeter they shoot. Some say the blacker the berry, the tighter the noose. I say the wider the jury, the deeper its roots. She say the darker the flesh, then the bigger he shoot. He say the bigger they come, all the sweeter, like juice. The bigger his juice and the tighter his roots, much sweeter as he shoots deeper in his noose. All right, 2 more, then I'll take a quick pause to reflect. Charleston. For the innocents massacred at Mother AME Emanuel Church. 9 confirmed dead. The blue back gliding from the computer screen underscores their black faces and the rows of teeth therein lit like vigil candles. Tonight, genuflect seems the fool's gambit. I recite their names one by one in the shape of a circle, but I don't receive an acknowledgement in thunder from above. I'm left only with the begging of 2 palms pressed together and the proof it wasn't enough. My body, a stack of mirrors, falls through itself. I am several nouns over the course of descent. Her silver whistle, her public library card, his set of starter hair clippers humming into the darkness with no plugs in a wall. I crash through the gray of the matter, go cleanly through the roof of the church without making a hole tracing a curious sparrow. But like a holy bird, I land softly on my feet. All the expected ornaments are here, I see. The stained glass windows overlooking the pulpit, and 2 paintings of Christ on the adjacent walls, crucifixion and resurrection, and all 9 of their bodies on the ground, not quite cold. I pick up an annotated student Bible, looking for Jesus' words for Lazarus, but struggle because all the text inside is red, still fresh. I move through the heart of the building, noting the belongings that will house their ghosts. Here are the church fans for Sunday service next to her foot. Here is the sentimental wallet, holding the pictures of 2 blossoming girls. Here is the small wooden cross affixed to a ring of keys that could open any of many doors. Here, their scuffed glasses, his navy backpack, his Chicago Bulls snapback, his black and red Sony headphones, familiar looking, looping lyric. Nina, voice strained through the wire, singing, "Blood on the leaves, blood on the leaves, blood on the leaves," the bright face of his smartphone jukebox glowing unattended. Missed call Tyrone, missed call Torrance, missed call Dominique, missed call TJ. I pick up all their many things and lay them in a line at the altar. I find cloth that had been reserved for clergy and choir in a closet close by, draw them over the 6 women and then the 3 men. I weep and I weep and I weep, and I ask the rhetorical question, why? But this time, receive an answer. I'm here to kill black people, he says, standing behind me. I sweat a bead of blue light. The thunder enters the back of my head and exits my mouth in the manner of prayer. I disperse like a cloud split by lightning, charged electrically by race. I'm erased, surely, completely, gone. Like I wasn't even there. Like I wasn't even there. All right, last one, then we'll take a quick reprieve. State of the Union. As it stands now, right now, I want a divorce from everything. This isn't some mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore angst. I was, in fact, born this dark. I know this body isn't safe anywhere it goes, under any circumstance. If an all-American heart attack doesn't take me, it will be a former all-American who took one too many hits on the field. who says his prayers and eats his vitamins, who loves his Second Amendment right first, before all else, exercises it while exercising a demon as he sees it, shooting rounds square in its heart. Always an it, always not quite human when you look into my eyes with a flashlight and find I've been gone for over 3 seconds already, 3 minutes already, 3 hours already, lying in the exact same spot on the street. How very sad, how very sick, how very cyclical this spinning out of control. Backlash from the far wings, a billionaire with a big mouth, a time bomb waiting to blow in the shadows somewhere. And let me say this, you know nothing of gloom until you're mourning strangers with regularity, going to their televised funerals, watching the first president of the United States of your kind of citizen sing a spiritual penned by slave-trading hands, the whole scene a sum-up. Our American sins can never be paid for in full. I would never trade my black face for Barack's black face, even if Michelle came as part of the deal. I'd suffocate between the walls of power because power wants me dead, or moving decimals further to the right, evangelizing the dollar. In my most agonizing moments, when the tumor of grief has engorged, I joke that it's his other half that spares him our fate, the Kansas girl with the ruby slippers. But I know it's actually the Secret Service, or maybe even the closely guarded secret, that ever since he told America on live television that a buried black boy looked like the son he never had, all those growing years ago, the president has been dead inside. And to that, I can only say, God bless, God bless, God bless Barry. For I know what those hands have signed off on, what those lips have let slide unsaid into unrecorded history, all audio-visual broadcasted between both terms, lacking those last kernels of truth that would finally break the scale, rather than trying to balance it back toward a false calm some folks lived with but others never could and didn't. Okay. All right, so I'll pause for a second there. And I'll ask again, how are you guys feeling? Like, honestly, how are you feeling? Anybody want to speak to that, to the room a little bit? Like, what do you feel inside right now? What do you feel in your head? What do you feel in your heart right now? Just say it out loud. Just speak it out. You don't have to raise your hand. This is an open space. Anyone?
Kind of depressing.
Depressing? Okay. That's real. Relatable. Okay. Relatable. Any other words people want to throw out there for the room? No, don't be shy. No judgment. There's no judgment. I just really am interested because I put y'all through a lot without stopping, without taking a breath, really. And I did that purposefully, but that's why I'm asking how you're feeling. How are you feeling right now? Everybody still feel okay? You here? Are you present? Thinking through everything, what you heard? Okay, well, that's good. I had to take a stop for me, but also for you. But the poems that I read through so far are all from basically the first of 3 sections in the book. And I have to give a shout out to Chris Salerno, who could not make it here tonight, but Chris was my editor during that process and helped me restructure and resequence some of the book. So I do want to acknowledge him since he unfortunately couldn't be in the room. But essentially, oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yes, so Chris Salerno, I should say, yes, is a professor here at, in the English department. So thank you for clarifying that. I'm kind of speaking out loud. I'm just coming from familiarity, right? I'm saying, oh, Chris, right, okay, good. Because I was like, give Chris a shout out. Chris, don't forget. And thankfully I didn't, but also you all know who Chris is. And he's a phenomenal poet in his own right, has books, multiple books that are written, and a very nice person, very genuine person. So if you ever see his name on the course register or something, look, consider that class. I recommend it. But getting back, I guess, to the poems, they all come from the first section, and the title, Telepathologies, is it's a real word, but a word that I'm kind of playing off of, in regards to this book. Each section speaking to a different part of its definition as I'm kind of applying to it. So that first definition, I'll read it to you actually here from that first section. So telepathology, 1, a subliminally, tongue twister. All right, let me start over because I didn't drink my water, so my lips are, sticking together. 1, a subliminally transmitted belief espousing the subhumanity of certain groups of people and deviating from healthy emotional and social cognition. A, media, the argument of subhumanity levied at specific populations through selective presentation of negative images or the use of coded language. So most of the poems in that book kind of speak to that idea about, somehow relate back to media or the pervasiveness, right? Thinking about things that have happened. So, I read a poem about Charleston, I read one about Eric Garner. These are things that were all highly publicized, televised, right? Even, live video recordings of what happened. And as someone who looks like me, kind of dealing with that and seeing that every day, that was exhausting. It was depressing, to use your word, but inescapable, right? And it hurts to have to watch that so publicly. You think in our cultural norms, right, we have a respect for the dead, but when it comes to stories like this, they're so sensationalized, so easily and readily broadcasted without thinking about what does that do to people who watch them? What does that do to see Eric Garner for the 1 millionth time get choked to death on a cell phone camera? What does it mean to see Walter Scott get shot in the back, right? Like over and over again. It does something to you whether you look like the person or not. But the greater question is, what does it do to you? And that's the one that I hope people think about kind of after they touch the poems or hear the poems, and kind of reflect on, because that's a work that we all have to do as responsible citizens, right? Especially in the year 2017. So the second section also builds off that definition, but the definition that it offers up, that's a change, would be the letter B for sociology. Devaluation of human lives through rampant, structurally determined acts of violence on the basis of a population's cultural or phenotypic traits. So these poems are a little bit more kind of looking inside of kind of my community, right? So rather than taking the outside view, but being, what is it like to be black, and looking at other black people and kind of what happens between us sometimes. So I'll read a couple poems from this section. Kids these days. And on the way home from our anniversary dinner, the gaslight comes on. So I pull off Ponce de Leon, which is a major street in Atlanta, and park my automobile adjacent pump. Turn off the ignition. Hear the rap music fade into the mouth of a gunshot. I get out of the car. She stays inside, texting. Darkness has infilled the sky completely. It's Saturday night, the 11th hour and change, and I look like a brother that's got a little money to my name, so I'm more alert than usual. Trip off the wind blowing. And then I hear the convenience store doors crash against the wall brick, the glass rattling inside the frames but still in one piece, my teeth rattling inside the frame of my guns, but my expression still in one piece of thuggish. a wolf pack of young brothers, ranging from 8 to 12 in their faces like a classroom clock in morning hours, running from the thin store clerk, barking the word bitch at the man behind them, their shoplifting attempt prevented, or so I convict, shaking my head just like a gavel vibrating with judgment. If their behavior escalates over time, they might pump this shell station with shells. Meditation on Wings and Meeting Gabriel in a Philadelphia Prison. And this one is dedicated to some of my students that I had in my undergrad days running poetry workshops in Philadelphia jails. They were all kids between the age of 13 and 17. Young men and young women. And so this one also starts with an epigraph. A lot of niggas go to prison. How many come out Malcolm X? Dice roll. Gabriel? Well, first and foremost, he was a black boy, like me, like a disproportion of the boys in the room with us, some brutal ratio. You know, I still remember the first poetry workshop he joined the class. We were shooting with the brothers on the Rubik's Cube of love, passing it like a blunt in circle over a rotation of songs, even hands that twisted necks having trouble subduing it. The halo that sharing ourselves is. Dean asked from his corner of the city if I love my girlfriend, because the girls he's seen around there aren't the kind you give the same crown as your mother. From another corner, mention of a newborn daughter, how she fits in his hand like a stolen watch, though we don't speak long about time borrowed or taken. Then there's another shout, an allusion to the heat of the color pink, Red nodding, Aaron laughing, Gabriel writing, pushed against his edges like a point of graphite, heaven's light making a keyhole of him, the gold cross around his neck reflecting the wraiths into my heathen, its bottomless color. When I freed my eyes, I looked upon him from a position of privilege, right place, right time. I noticed his skin was both darker and smoother than my own, and our eyes were mud by birth, so neither could decide which of us was guilty and which was innocent, who was saint and who was sinner. I spoke to him in the way God speaks to emptiness, but he didn't speak back. The visible clump of a fist nestled between his vocal cords, maybe the very reason why he was even here, not more than 16 years old and behind bars like a rapper's persona. Hopefully the kind who name drops Malcolm X. All the verses we mull, maybe, his own Elijah, his new wings of gauze. Bibliophobia, fear of books. It was written, the alias he's taken to like a real name, his weight in bare skin and bones, a statement of condition as one expects to read on eBay auctions, like new, penned next to a price for the body, but not for the head. The head is an empty grave the rest of him will retreat to when he reaches the end of his wits and says no mosa. But for now, what rests on the ledger's pages is of indecipherable importance to him. The letters, simply miniature skeletons of sequenced sounds he's heard in his past, harbingers of a certain death he does well to duck by playing dumb or at least compatible to the orders of his legal holder once the auctioneer has announced sold, and he pretends that he is not shrinking between his legs or everywhere else. That word is a familiar one. What split him from the woman he was not allowed to call wife within earshot of a whip. She had been a lighter laborer, a house hand, even learned to move her own in the figure of her name as the young mistress of the plantation taught her to in an illegal act of honey. But when found out, Massa licked the ink from her fingers after forcing a sign-off on her own sale. He kept the children, her children, conceived with him or him, withheld in poor syntax and even poorer spirits, that whole family, generations later, still ungraduated and having books closed on them, each ending with them behind bars, barcoded. The Hood. 1. In the moonlight, a steeple of cloth crowns the head of a good church-going man. Pay little mind to his serpent's tongue, his jagged teeth deteriorated from chewing coal, his scornful eyes as bloodshot as the momentum of a bullet through soft tissue. Take his word that the rope was tied of good intentions, tied of great love for country, for family, for manhood. In imitation of Christ, he carried that cross here on his back. The fire set to it is not hatred. Moses will testify it is the healthy fear of God. Our brother in a gentler nature is only reminding us of our proper place, and in Sunday affection, we call him our hood. 2. Come dawn, all the colored kids wipe ash from eye, pack their school bags, walk past the statuesque making monument of the corner in front of the liquor store, past the pigeon man passed out on the sidewalk, trace the dance of a Christian prayer across the busiest streets. In their classrooms, they read the same books that taught their grandparents, both things kind of expository, unhinged at the spines from life without retirement, just like the old janitor, sanded down to bone, his hands callous. If one could count the splinters that have retired in them from pushing mops and brooms day after day, they'd have ample to recreate the accessory of the Messiah's end, what set mold for gold chains of rapper fame. 3. While we sleep, he knocks against the window, shouting epithets, making threats, fires a few gunshots into the air for effect. We don't go outside. Don't confront him brandishing a pistol of our own. Don't call police, because the police are already here keeping order. We simply wait for law to pass. 4. Around here, black men disappear without notice, never return from the liquor store a mile down the road. The rumors will spread, say he went for cigarettes, but in the end became smoke drowned in wind. Funeral held in the church a few blocks away from Big Mama's house, its steeple a historical illusion in the distance. Everyone passed his casket dressed in dark, unmistakable ethnicity, even the men crying as fluently as faucet handles turn. The rope burns on his throat well hidden by a necktie. 5. When night fell again, more shots. A couple windows broken by the butts of shotguns. Fires ignited on crosses. We slept through it all, our bones of rock, the word in his mouth red hot, hateful, yet warm enough to live with. The fire a tent is pitched around in brotherhood wherever we go, that also reminds us why our blood is easy shed. And this is the last one from this section I'll read. You're only as healthy as you feel. This is how it should be done. Place the pistol, loaded, in the nightstand nearest where the last letter of the alphabet repeats itself. In the same drawer, set a stolen hotel Bible, the New International Version. In the event of bodies colliding in a fender bender, stow away some condoms that can survive the tread of a hunger pang. It might even be worth it to stash a notepad and pen there if you're a sensitive type. Find yourself always at the tipping point like a bottle full of tequila. Don't forget the pills either. Hold those within reach of a gasp for air. Pop them all. Watch the lines blur and black swallow every other color like a ghetto music. Have a dog around, too. A big dog with a mouth the size of a city, teeth jagged as a skyline's tracing. 2 dogs even. 2 big ones. Think about pit bulls, Rottweilers. Don't bank large sums of money in the house. It's trite, and the bat can't cope with that kind of mattress anyhow. Before hitting the sack for good, make sure the house is empty, except for the dogs, of course. Check to see if the gun is resting safely in the nightstand drawer. If not there, check inside your mouth, by the dog's water dish, maybe under the toilet hood. Lock all your doors and windows tight. Keep light on in the hallway to scare away any dark figures. Pour yourself a glass of ice-cold water and bring it bedside. Read scripture and pray. Add several milligrams to make it happen faster. Maybe not wake up too sore. Back due for a good massage. Remember to put on a rubber before the night consumes you, in case a blessing comes in your sleep. Cool. All right, pause. How y'all feeling? Good? You still here? Still here? Okay. I'll read a few more poems and then I'll kind of open the floor for questions. We can chat. If anything's on your mind, I'd love to hear it. But this last section of the book kind of has poems that revolve around a little bit more about what does internalizing everything that we've been talking about do to you, right? What does it do to you inside your own body? What does it do to how you relate with other people? So I think often about racism, right? And how, coming from my own male perspective as a black person, right? How does it relate to things like sexism? How does it relate to homophobia, right? Violence that is perpetrated, against people in different ways. But those people also being like people I know, my own sisters, my friends. What are the ways in which, because I have experienced violence, in a number of different definitions of that word, what does it teach me, and how do I end up putting violence on other people? But I'll just read a few poems from this section. Mama speaks on profiling. Some folk will always look at you sideways, their eyes a slant of sour opinion, but freedom is a forward march, baby boy. Give cheek without cheek, steadfast sight on glory. Christ saved you already. No book thrown at you can weigh more than all that precious blood. Meditation on Sunday traditions after the video leaks, for Janae Rice. On Sundays like this, the fearing of God, football and the oblong shape of a family. I listened to an old story about Granny's hair getting caught in the knuckled grip of a flame, about Granddaddy's hands patting flame out over screams of Alvin, though his first name is George, and it took me years to figure that out. Unkindness. That is a flock of ravens in the sky somewhere. Today, I imagine there is a pot of rice on the stove for my more fickle sister, mac and cheese in the oven for me and everybody, fried chicken in a paper bucket paid for by collection plate, soul food as shadow of the deep south, stretching throughout the house, a mix of warm sweet flour and musty greens, a scar reflected on fondly, but still a scar. On the TV, there's the purple of a polished helmet. A bruise of light shined on our faces, kissing the darkness of our skin. And another darkness is the truck in the garage he can no longer drive, what she never learned to in these many years rooted. But I'm distracted from it by the absence of my favorite side dish, my first grandchild privilege. Watching the game, There's side commentary about my granddaddy playing with the pigskin in his younger days. I can smell a helping of smothered pork on the counter. As a dry house, there is no alcohol here, no beer, but there's a recent medical condition, continuing to erase who he's been except for the mercy of a smile. Windows open to a breeze, an air of defeat in Baltimore, blowing west to where we be. I notice the darkness of our skins again, because we can't escape them, as well as the scarcity of men in this house full of women. In the spaces between us, there's a question that needs to be asked of every man by every man, but isn't. My sister nonchalantly recalls our brother breaking the lock on a door in a fit of manhood once. As she does, I can feel my muscles work, rounding hand to wrecking ball, muscles I had forgotten were there. And here, the Baltimore Ravens are on TV after another pitiful Bears defeat, the home white ghost of Ray Rice in the middle of my eye. There's the moving image of a woman being carried like a lifeless pigskin, of his hand with no fear of God at that particular time, I guess, because the film wasn't taken on a Sunday, because on Sundays there's football to play, the oblong shape of a family huddled around a television set, a circle but also not, a halo only if squinting. Gynophobia, fear of women. Whether sparing her the rod, whether sparing neither set of kids or all. Dimorphism, a difference in muscle and its willing use. The raw pink question is how a body learns to speak this way, like a boy, in only blues and purples, with hammers of bone and skin. In elementary school, mirrors on the tips of shoes, skirts folding in the wind as the fabric of a pale flag would, and no one asks how we ever learned to play that kind of horn at such an early age, before we could even read a hormones sheet music in the blemishes of a face. How we could say to her, "You are so pretty." Say to her, "Do you want to arm wrestle?" Say to her, "Ain't no girl ever beaten me in a game of one-on-one, so you might as well just be my girl." Honey, boo, baby, doll. Such sweet contrivances allow poisons easier swallow. Worn knuckles, any substance that knots the blood or makes the mind disappear. They say all is fair in love and war. No more clever form of confession. There are casualties we expect and tolerate. Casuals, a cupping of ass in the darkness of the nightclub. An analogy, carnivorous and carnal, hissing bitch as she walks by. How a man stands at altar head before God and God's mama and declares that he's marrying his best friend, meaning it, but not how it is prayed. His mouth, a drawer full of knives. Honeymoon moon, an ill yellow. His hand on the doorknob of her knee. If she locks her legs closed, there will be no more of him. Hostility can be his sudden turn, or hardly a turn at all. All right, two more poems I'll read here. The Barbershop. The barbershop is hallowed ground in hoods across the nation, and how could it not be? I mean, there are so few places, so few situations where a brother has a blade pressed to his neck, preciously near an artery, yet knows mercy. Its razor-thin pressure point lifting away without drawing one drop of blood. I mean, even the clippers, well-oiled and labor-warm, hum like an old deacon's lip during devotion if you listen real close. I mean, the barber steadies my worldly worry heavy head with his hands, and you can't tell me that's not how love cuts in close quarters. I mean, they say black folks don't tip, but that's for service. We tip well for love. Just ask any one of the fellas that crops our hair as high top, bald fade, or other. I mean, when I tell him to hit me with the one, that's all that needs to be said. Said differently, the barber knows every one of my secrets by the shape. I mean, young and old school players alike all shoot shit on skirts, straight scheming on sex and other Saturday night jaunts. I mean, everybody is straight while they're up in the shop. I mean, everybody be eyeing hard when she walks through the doors in sunglasses and a tight pair of jeans, high-cut shorts. I mean, she's cool to come into the shop, get a cut like everybody else. I mean, I think everybody there wants to cut her for real, for real. I mean, I know women who can really cut a brother's hair. Hook him up real good, too. I mean, plenty of women have brothers, have baby boys they bring in to tame the beast of their kink. I mean, when baby boy finishes getting his hair cut, he's going to look like her little man. I mean, little man gonna learn how to be one in here, when to raise his eyebrows, who for, how to inflect his fresh line to advantage. I mean, this is the space we pray all our black baby boys are able to have. I mean, they need to know in what ways Jordan is God and Kobe his first disciple. I mean, if they can't play ball, then thank God they got somewhere else to go and get their hustle on. I mean, don't it sound like church when you think on it? Full of sinners, but something pure and sacred at the same damn time. I mean, haven't we made movies about this? Wasn't Ice Cube in it? Cedric the Entertainer? Eve? I mean, didn't a man write all of her lines? All right, last poem. And I'll do it, the last one from the book. In theory, we are all human. Not a simple thing, no. Not to be taken lightly, to be understood. And I do, that is, get the theory of you. Integral of human possibilities. The theory of your body as a familiar machine, like mine, like something that hums while it works the skin together where there had been a rip before. The theory of skin, of its color and discolor. The theory of your blood and bones, like mine. Your eyes and lashes, like mine. Your nose, your mouth, full of ocean, like mine. The theory of freedom, which I take to be a naked feather, dancing, almost like a hammock, back and forth in the passing wind. The theory of God as asymptote and the theory of love as limit. The two, tied together inside my head by a math problem. The theory of law as inequality instead of equation. The theory of a wedding dress and the theory of a wedding dress on fire. The theory of binding breasts like pages of a book needing to be read. The theory of birth as death sentence. The theory of life as illness. The theory of male and the theory of female and the theory of neither, and yet still this body, like mine, graphed on so many dimensions. The theory of choice, like reaching for an apple instead of an orange. The theory of sin, like reaching for an apple. The theory of ribs as prison bars. The theory of homelessness among family. The theory of children who claim you likewise as a blessing. The theory of your smile. The theory of a rainbow after the storm, like the gift of a perfect bridge over troubled waters. The theory of your hand touching mine, incidentally, in the closet of a single moment. The theory that one of us, in that moment, did not exist in our right mind. The theory of mind as illness. The theory of choice, again, but for which of us and what between. The theory of sex and sacred in the hard, hard practice. The theory of you. The theory of me. The theory of a good person and the truth of a bad, though in theory I cannot say who or won't. Cool. All right. All right, thank you. So that's just, I guess you could say, some selections from the book. And from my perspective, I hope that, you enjoyed them for what they are. They're blue poems for sure, or at least a lot of them are, although there are moments of humor in the book for sure. But, while they are, sonically sometimes they might be pleasing, I hope that at very least in being here tonight, like they give you something to think about, right? To ponder. And, they spark questions that you want to ask, right? Ask of yourself, ask of others around you, ask of your communities, ask of this country. And that's really the intent, right, behind writing these words and the intent behind a lot of the poems I'm writing now, where I'm kind of exploring a little bit more of my upbringing, my personal upbringing back in Chicago. So, with that, I'll kind of leave that as my closing statements on like the reading portion. But if you have questions or you want to chat, more than happy to do that since we all are here together. So I give you all the floor, but thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate it. How you doing?
Good. I heard you say that you ran like a poetry thing for prisons or jails. I just wanted to hear more about that. That sounded interesting.
Yeah, so I'll talk about that for a minute. So while I was in college in Philadelphia, that's when I actually started writing poetry. I started writing in college and started doing spoken word. And I was performing with folks on campus and then also around Philadelphia, so I started to like meet new people. And one organization that we had come in contact with while I was there was something called the Youth and Self-Empowerment Project, so or YASP for short. And what they would do is they would go around to Philadelphia jails and do workshops, artistic workshops, poetry, music, etc., for minors who were locked away in Philadelphia jails, right? So there was a lot of them. And beyond the workshops themselves, right, the organization outside of that did advocacy to change the laws around putting people that young in adult facilities rather than sending them into juvenile, the juvenile system, right? Because the law offered that leeway so that, prosecutors or whoever, based upon the charge, they could put a kid, in an adult prison and just have them live in there. And I don't think, I don't think it's right for many, many reasons, but the organization did advocacy to stop that law. So I came on as a workshop leader for poetry. And so I would often go in, on Saturdays when I didn't have class with one of the YAS folks named Sarah Morris. And I would devise like a lesson plan, give a writing exercise, we'd talk for a little bit, and then, we'd have time to free write, listen to music, and just kind of kick back. And it was something I looked forward to, and for them it was a way to get them also like away from everything that was around them, even if it was just for like an hour, max, because they were pretty strict about kicking us out of there, but within a certain amount of time, the jail was. So that's something that I did over a good amount of time and started building relationships with them. And some folks got to leave, which was good, and then I left before some folks did, and some folks won't leave. So that was a lot to deal with, but that's kind of how I got involved. Man, I'm still young. That's why my voice is cracking, y'all. I'm so young. But thinking back, the vast majority of my students in those workshops were Black or Latino, and I maybe remember one or two white folks that I ever had, and that's not because crimes aren't being committed, but it has a lot to do with how certain places are policed, and how justice is distributed, and who has the resources to fight a case and who doesn't, right? So I'll just kind of leave it at that, but that's kind of that was my experience there. Any other questions or thoughts? Yep.
when I was listening to you earlier, I was trying to, keenly pay attention to usage of words and, different aspects of the language you're using. How in the world did you manage to keep the tone of your work so moderate on such like a heavy topic? Like, where did you draw inspiration from?
Yeah, I think the personality of the words very much reflects my own personality as the author of them, right? So I'm a very even keel type of person. I'm laid back, I'm chill. Like I can be excitable in certain situations, but my girlfriend teases me. She says I don't get excited for shit. And like in a way, it's like, I'm just kind of here, you know what I'm saying? But I think it comes from a couple different places. So my personality is part of it. Secondly is thinking about it is kind of removing myself far enough so that I can look at the situation from the perspective of like a scientist or a social scientist, right? So I'm kind of trying to remove as much as I can the bias, but I'm also trying to allow enough in so that pieces of my own personal experience trickle into the poem, right? So I want it to sound, kind of the way it came out because it's easier for people to accept that I'm saying the truth if I say it that way. It is, not every poem in the book is set in that way. Like there's one poem in here, Feeling Fucked Up, which is very not written that way. But I needed to offer the range so you as a reader, anybody who picked up this book, right, could kind of see myself working through it. And when you're working through something, you go through stages, right? You go through rage, you go through sorrow, you go through solemnness, you go through, silence and quietude, right? Like, all of that's in here because all of that is true. I felt all of those things at different times. Sometimes I felt them at the same time, and that's a very confusing thing, but this is what helped me sort it out. So I think that's a great question, but I think that's, honestly, I think that's the best answer I can give to it. But it's a fantastic question.
I wanted to talk about Kendrick Lamar, and I feel like some of his music is really hard for Africans to understand. So, how do you think that you can make normal people understand this one without that?
Well, yeah, for Kendrick, I borrowed some of his lyrics off Blacker the Berry and remixed them with, some lyrics from Tupac on Keep Your Head Up. But with Kendrick, if you are a hip hop listener, right, and like looking at his trajectory from the mixtapes through Section 80, through Good Kid, through To Pimp a Butterfly, he's definitely experimenting and stretching like the range of what he feels comfortable with and doing. But in a way, like, he has to do what's true to him as an artist. I don't necessarily think he has to or should make things simple because I think he's trying to show that things are complicated for a reason, and I think the complexity of his most recent project kind of speaks to that. If people want to hear, there's other places they can go, even within like hip hop, right? It's like, J. Cole is another artist of that generation, and I think J. Cole and Kendrick, their visions are similar, but their executions are totally different. And I think where some people might gravitate towards a K Lamar, like maybe I do, right? I prefer Kendrick, but J. Cole kind of makes it plain, states it plain, and so he's kind of an everyman. And so you're getting that commentary from other artists. You're getting that commentary from other poets. Like other poets aren't going to write about this the same way I am, and there's many poets tackling many different issues kind of in a creative way, visual artists as well. And also just, making sure that you read the news, you follow the news, you digest it, you question it, question what is real and what's not real. At the end of the day, the folks, our thinkers, our artists, right, can only do so much. Like a lot of that labor still comes back on us as individual people. So it's like, you got to do the work to make sure that this makes sense. You got to do the work to make the world you live in a little bit better every day. That's just something that we all, I think, is a responsibility that all of us have. I don't think all of us pay attention to that responsibility as much as we should. So that's kind of my thoughts there.
Do you think that social media is
getting awareness?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like take Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter doesn't exist without Twitter. It wouldn't, like, it literally would not have become what it was without Twitter. Social media, the great power of social media, and this is a power that has to be monitored and balanced, right? Because it can also spread lots of other things. But what it does is it democratizes information. It makes everybody a creator of information. It makes information accessible to everybody. So that's the beauty of it. But in a world where you get fed so many things at once, like, that's why it's more important than ever to make sure that you are a critical thinker and you're questioning things, because people can say one thing that doesn't make it true. It's a lot harder nowadays to figure out what you can and cannot trust. So I will say that is true. But social media overall is a very, very positive thing. It's connected so many people, so many organizers trying to do important work, around race, around the environment, around LGBT rights. All of that stuff is important. So, I'm a big proponent of it, but just think that always question how that power is used and how you're using that power as well. Any other questions? You can find my book. Well, I do have a couple copies with me, but you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, small press distribution. There's some other folks too, but the easiest places to find it would be Amazon and Barnes & Noble, since they're the biggest places. Cool. Any other questions? All right, well, I'll be hanging back for a little bit, so if you want to ask something more one-to-one, that's cool, I'll be up here. But again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. And since it's Thursday, y'all are heading into the weekend, so you know what that means. Have fun.